This week, I had a good conversation with John Warkentine about basically how he realized that he was using the urgency side of engaging the ADHD brain to get motivated and do stuff, especially on stuff that was important for others or stuff that was not good for us. And a really good point that he brought up is that you know there's two types of the urgencies: a healthy one and a not so healthy one. So the healthy one is we do need have some sort of urgency to initiate, motivate our ADHD brain to get things going and to get into hyperfocus, right? And I think the ADHD nervous interest-based nervous system has a lot to do getting into hyperfocus. And I think let's talk about here. Hyperfocus to me is on a spectrum. Either you're kind of in a hyperfocus or you're full out where the world is dead to you and you can't nothing's going to distract you. So there's a spectrum. I think there's different layers or levels of hyperfocus. So the ADHD interest-based nervous system is all about getting to hyperfocus to get to get execute stuff to do. um, Now the positive energy, what do you say, generating urgency is like his example of when his farm equipment breaks down right in the middle of harvest. It's actually that kind of stuff is actually fun. It's urgent. We got to come up with a solution quickly. The brain's activated and we're on a roll. And that's a positive energy. It is stressful, but it's a positive generating energy situation. And just like with me, the construction site, or helping a fellow friend or a client understand themselves better. It's especially when there's some urgency what they're trying to figure out, or especially when they're having a hard time or they're in a hard or caught in a corner. So that's the positive energy derivation of it. Now, the thing is, his next point is the energy draining urgency method. And I think a lot of us ADHD growth mindset entrepreneurs, unknowingly, we created urgency to get stuff done, especially was important for other people. And a lot of times to get a bunch of stuff done that you don't like to do. And like he said, procrastinate right to the last minute. Or for me, and some of his examples was that we would just leave a lot of those tasks to be to the end. Let me rephrase that. We let a bunch of those not so fun tasks or tasks to do for other people that doesn't interest us to amalgamate and add up to a big list of 10, 15 things to do. And I will just do it in one shot to get this pain, quote unquote, pain over with, because I know I'm not going to have fun. And that's energy draining. We can still get into hyper focus doing negative stuff or doing stuff we don't like. We can still get down and dirty and do it. But our emotional side gets a little dysregulated and we're not fun to be around in that. So we got to keep that in mind. If you're doing the negative draining, energy draining tasks, just be cognizant of the people around you, or at least alert. I started alerting people, hey, I'm going to go and do a bunch of stuff I don't enjoy. And if you want to interrupt me during this time, don't be surprised if I'm a little snarky, because I'm doing stuff that I don't want to do, especially it's stuff that other people were supposed to do and didn't do, I had to redo. And his point too, John was talking about a lot of communication about why you react a certain way or why you need things a certain way, just to explain that our brain wiring is different and that we have these shortcomings. Like, our working memory is not as great as everyone else, but even neurotypical people have working memories different than the majority. So explain why I need to write everything down, or why I need you to send me an email because I don't forget it, is good. Or send me an appointment in my calendar so I will remember. If it's there, I go. And for him, it was a big key thing, is because, like, for me, like, my one therapist told me, like, I hyper focused on my career for 15 years and that's all I did. And I think it was true, a true hyper focused everything. And I really used urgency as a tool to get to appointments on time, over structuring my calendar. So I'm always on the go. to keep things interesting. It was always a challenge to see if I can just squeak out another 5 minutes and still get to that appointment on time in 2 hours, even though it takes 3 hours to drive there. That happened many times. That's why I started blocking in travel time into my calendar. Um, but it's one of those things where we don't want to get lost in this concept of the ADHD nervous system, interest-based nervous system, that we only want to do urgent things and thinking that doing a bunch of stuff that we want is this the only way to do. And what John was also saying is now he's trying to restructure, at least identify the urgent type of stuff. He's got a long list of things to do. He's creating that on purpose a little bit. So he creates urgency so his mind can gear into shape and have a long list. But he's identified 2, 3, 4 things that needs to be done that day. And he's going to allow the rest to not be done once the end of the day is received. New boundaries, new habits created. But since he understands that urgency helps with stuff he's not 100% fond of doing, he's controlled how he's using urgency rather than the brain using urgency subconsciously to control you. And I think that's the biggest difference here, is that with his awareness of how the ADHD brain works, he's using the advantages of his brain to make it work for him. Well, in the past, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us who are listening, and myself too, in our undiagnosed days, it was our brain controlling us. The brain thrives on motivation and thrives on stimulation. And if we weren't providing it because we're following everyone else's rules, then it created its own mechanism to do it. The brain doesn't know if it's a healthy or negative mechanism to engage in something that's fun for you. They're trying to protect you and help you survive. So sounds like John and I were on the same path undiagnosed. We were using energy inefficiently. Subconsciously, it was being used for us to be motivated and get stuff done. But a lot of the stuff was energy draining, especially when we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, like everyone else, like we're supposed to, because how we did things was not right. Therefore, we try to change the way we do, but that's someone else's measuring stick. And I think that's what we need to be aware of. Whose measuring stick are we using? We can use the urgency mode of the interest-based nervous system to get stuff done. But again, manage your strengths so they don't become weaknesses. In our undiagnosed ADHD days, John and I were using urgency subconsciously and consciously as a negative maladaptive practice. And it was energy draining. Emotional dysregulation is not there. Because honestly, when you're not happy doing stuff for 20 years, how can you be a perky, happy person all the time? It's tough. So now it's time for us to regain control, understand that what we do best, and do the stuff that we want to do and how we want to do it, so we don't have this negative energy draining urgency default maladaptive practice. So let me know if this hits you and if this makes sense to you. If you got any other questions, please send me an email at andre@theimpulsivethinker.com. Thanks again for listening and learning with me.